Hello, hi, we're in the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. We're on 1-7, the top of it. This will be the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization, the PATCO strike. All right, while preparing the NAS plan, let's see, we got National Airspace System, NAS. The FAA faced a strike by key members of its workforce. An earlier period of discord between management and the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization, PATCO, culminated in the 1970s sick-out by 3,000 controllers. Although controllers subsequently gained additional wage and retirement benefits, another period of tension led to an illegal strike in August 1981. The government dismissed over 11,000 strike participants and decertified PATCO. By the spring of 1984, the FAA ended the last of the special restrictions imposed to keep the airspace system operating safely during the strike. All right. Airline Deregulation Act of 1978. Until 1978, the CAB regulated many areas of commercial aviation, such as fares, routes, and schedules. The Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, however, removed many of these controls, thus changing the face of civil aviation in the United States. After deregulation, unfettered free competition ushered in a new era in passenger air travel. The CAB had three main functions: to award routes to airlines, to limit the entry of air carriers into new markets, and to regulate fares for passengers. Much of the established practices of commercial passenger travel within the United States went back to the policies of Walter Fogel Brown, the United States Postmaster General during the administration of President Herbert Hoover. Brown had changed the mail payment system to encourage the manufacture of passenger aircraft instead of mail-carrying aircraft. His influence was crucial in awarding contracts and helped create four major domestic airlines: United, American, Eastern, and Transcontinental, and Western Air, TWA. Similarly, Brown had also helped give Pan American a monopoly on international routes. To push to deregulate, or at least to reform the existing laws governing passenger carriers, was accelerated by President Jimmy Carter, who appointed economist and former professor Alfred Kahn, a vocal supporter of deregulation, to head the CAB. A second force to deregulate emerged from aboard. In 1977, Freddie Laker, a British entrepreneur who owned Laker Airways, created the SkyTrain service, which offered extraordinarily cheap fares for transatlantic flights. Laker's offerings coincided with a boom in low-cost domestic flights as the CAB eased some limitations in charter flights, i.e., flights offered by companies that do not actually own planes but lease them from the major airlines. The big air carriers responded by proposing their own lower fares. For example, American Airlines, the country's second largest airline, obtained CAB's approval for Super Saver tickets. All of these events proved to be favorable for large-scale deregulation. In November 1977, Congress formally deregulated air cargo. In late 1978, Congress passed the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, legislation that had been principally authored by Senators Edward Kennedy and Howard Cannon. There was stiff opposition to the bill from the major airlines, who feared free competition, from labor unions who feared non-union employees, and from safety advocates who feared that safety would be sacrificed. Public support was, however, strong enough to pass the act. The act appeased the major airlines by offering generous subsidies, and it pleased workers by offering high unemployment benefits if they lost their jobs as a result. The most important effect of the act, whose law were slowly phased in, was on the passenger market. For the first time in 40 years, airlines could enter the market or from 1981 expand their routes as they saw fit. Airlines from 1982 also had full freedom to set their fares. In 1984, the CAP was finally abolished since its primary duty of regulating the airline industry was no longer necessary. All right, so on 1-7, this is the role of the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR. The FAA is empowered by regulations to promote aviation safety and establish safety standards for civil aviation. The FAA achieves these objectives under the Code of Federal Regulations, the CFR, which is the codification of general and permanent rules published by the executive departments and agencies of the United States government. The regulations are divided into 50 different codes called titles that represent broad areas subject to federal regulations. FAA regulations are listed under Title 14, Aeronautics and Space, which encompasses all aspects of civil aviation, from how to earn a pilot's certificate to maintenance of an aircraft. For the pilot, certain parts of 14 CFR are more relevant than others. During flight training, it is helpful for the pilot to become familiar with the parts of this and subparts to relate to flight training and pilot certification. For instance, 14 CFR Part 61 pertains to the certification of pilots, flight instructors, and ground instructors. It also defines the eligibility, aeronautical knowledge, flight proficiency, as well as training and testing requirements for each type of pilot certificate issued. 14 CFR Part 91 provides guidance in the areas of general flight rules, visual flight rules, VFR, and instrument flight rules, IFR. While 14 CFR Part 43 covers aircraft maintenance, preventive maintenance, rebuilding, and alterations. Primary locations of the FAA. The FAA headquarters are in Washington, D.C., and there are 9 regional offices strategically located across the United States. The agency's 2 largest field facilities are the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, the MMAC, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and the William J. Hughes Technical Center, the WJHTC, in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Home to FAA Training and Logistics Services, the MMAC provides a number of aviation safety related and business support services. The WJHTC is the premier aviation research and development and test and evaluation facility in the country. The center's programs include testing and evaluation in ATC, communication, navigation, airports, aircraft safety, and security. Furthermore, the WJHTC is active in long-range development of innovative aviation systems and concept, development of new ATC equipment and software, and modifications of existing systems and procedures. Field offices of the FAA. So 1-8, Flight Standards Service. With FAA, the Flight Standards Service promotes safe air transportation by setting the standards for certification and oversight of airmen, air operators, air agencies, and designees. It also promotes safety of flight of civil aircraft and air commerce by accomplishing certification, inspecting, surveillance, investigation, and enforcement, setting regulations and standards, managing the system for registration of civil aircraft and all airmen records. The focus of interaction between Flight Standards Service and the aviation community general public is the Flight Standards District Office, FSDO. Don't mess with it. Flight Standards District Office, the FSDO. The FAA has approximately 130 FSDOs. These offices provide information and services for the aviation community. FSDO phone numbers are listed in the telephone directory under Government Offices, DOT, FAA. Another convenient method of finding local offices to use the FSDO locator available at www.faa.gov/about/office_offices/avs/AFS600. All right. In addition to accident investigation and the enforcement of aviation regulations, the FSDO is also responsible for certification and surveillance of air carriers, air operators, flight schools, training centers, and airmen, including pilots and flight instructors. Each FSDO is staffed by aviation safety inspectors, the ASIs, who play a key role in making the nation's aviation systems safe. We're stopping right there. We're stopping at the top of 1-9. See ya. Next one will be Aviation Safety Inspector. We're in, FAA. See ya.